Everybody knows that Google is the largest search engine. But when it comes to local search, if I asked you what the second largest search engine was, would you know the right answer? Most businesses would probably say Yelp, Bing, or maybe even ChatGPT. But the answer might surprise you. It's Apple Maps. Apple Maps has been quietly building its presence for a long time. Apple has a 60% market share in North America. So literally 60% of people walking around with a phone in their pocket have iPhones. And when you buy that iPhone, the default mapping application is Apple Maps. They launched Apple Maps in 2012, and it was a quite notable tech failure actually at the time. It had bad data, it was sending people in the wrong direction, but Apple hasn't given up. They continue to invest in Apple Maps, and finally about 2 years ago, they launched Apple Business Connect, which gave businesses access to their business profile in a very similar way that businesses can access their Google business profile. But Apple is truly the #2 local search platform. You can't argue with data. When we compare business visibility in terms of views, in terms of actions like direction requests, phone calls, website visits, to platforms like Yelp, for example, what we're finding is that even in really strong markets that Yelp has had presence in for far longer, we're talking like New York, San Francisco, Philadelphia, Miami, Chicago, when we compare the volume of business traffic on Yelp versus Apple is on average getting 25 times more visibility for businesses than Yelp profiles for the same business. But Apple is often very rarely talked about, which surprises me because Apple is actually quite relevant. We're finding that most businesses are getting about half the volume of directions on Apple versus Google. On Apple, we're finding that about 70 to 80% of search intent is business name or brand driven, whereas on Google, that's about 20 to 30% on average. So it does suggest that Apple is still maybe leans a little bit more towards being a navigation app still, but it's still quite important to think about that. If it's the last click that people make before they come to your business, that experience does matter, right? Even if you've already converted them and they're already coming to you, that last mile, you need to make sure that your PIN is correct, that your hours are right, that you do have your brand well represented on this channel. We were at the International Pizza Expo and asked people to find a local business for us, specifically find a local pizza shop. And several of the respondents in this experiment went right to Apple Maps. They didn't go to Google. They didn't go to Yelp. They went to Apple. And that's so important to think about, that it is actually a growing marketing channel. It's a marketing asset to your business. And so next time that somebody asks you, what can we do to diversify our business? Where else can we generate presence? Where else can we find easy wins? The answer is Apple Maps. Not Yelp, not Bing, not ChatGPT. Apple is, no question about it, the #2 local search platform.